Just like wipe his tears
Yeah, he
because he
crying.
was so excited about,
Of course, I missed you.
um, we got some exciting news coming up. So Wisconsin Voice is starting today. Will only be on Monday and Tuesdays. They got some exciting new programming on Friday from 11 to 12. So we will give you all of our content on Monday and Tuesday. Are they? You think you sad? You sad?
I miss you.
3 days. Oh, can we play that? Oh, yeah, we can't be doing all that. But we really gonna try to focus on just the partners in this new year. Really pushing the partners. Really pushing because there's a couple of elections that are super important coming up, but it's not much on the ballot. It's the Supreme Court race, which is coming up in April. That's the general, and then there's the what is the official title of that? Is that the director of student or what is it?
Superintendent.
So state superintendents is the other election, and that's pretty much it right now. And then there's and we'll know about the school boards in a second in Milwaukee because we'll know who's running. Haven't heard much about that one, but we want to make sure you know everything there is. There's some important lessons in that superintendent. I mean, in the school board race. I mean, not the school board race, in the Supreme Court race. This will decide if it stays left leaning or if it will go right leaning. If it stays left leaning like it is now, it should be good for 2 years because the next two people who are running are leaning judges. So even if they get replaced with another right leaning, it still will be a left leaning judge. Supreme Court, Wisconsin Supreme Court. If they lose it, this could be a right leaning Supreme Court for at least 3 years. 2 to 3 years. So, depending on where your stance in all this is in a very important election. It's important. The school superintendent is also important because basically this is the Supreme Court of the school districts. If you have an issue and you go through to your principal and then you go to your school board and then you're still not resolved, it goes to the superintendent of schools. So it is super important that we pay attention to these elections. It looks like as of right now there's no one running against any of the incumbents on judges. So that's kind of something that we want to look at and see how these judges are doing. We have to start doing kind of scorecards on these judges. But let's see what else is in the news today. As you may or may not heard, our former president, Jimmy Carter, has passed away. He was 100 years old. He passed away December 29th. He was born October 1st, 1924. That's a long time. A long time. And I was watching something on an interview where they said, "What are you most proud of?" And he said, I'm proud to be a great grandfather and a grandfather and a father. He's like, I hope I was a good, husband. I think they were married 77 years or something like that. And then the last one, when they talked about politically, he said, I'm proud that he was a peacetime president. He said he had his issues, but he at least was a peacetime president. So we want to send our prayers to the Carter family and thank President Jimmy Carter, the 39th president, for doing what he did to steer America in the right direction. All right. So coming up is everybody's getting sworn in for these seats that they won, the state rep, Congress, all that. Well, we have a second term state rep. Introduce yourself.
How's it going? I am State Representative Darrin Madison. I represent the 10th Assembly District, which encompasses Shorewood, Glendale, and 11 neighborhoods in Milwaukee, including this one, the Rufus King neighborhood. Um, and I've been organizing all my life.
Well,
And
we'll get
onward,
into
yeah.
that in a minute, but I just wanted to say, and my pseudo son, y'all, because it's my baby boy. He been part of our family since he was like 15, and he just is. I'm so proud of the person he's become. He has represented me well here in Glendale because he's part of he's our state rep. Um, this is your second term, Mr. Madison.
It is.
How was that first term? Let's go back. Well, let's go back a little bit because some people know you, some people don't know you, but like your background, I know you did a lot of organizing. Just tell a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah. I started doing organizing work when I was 8. I used to go to the Urban Ecology Center, and I fell in love with the environment.
That's a big thing with you, I know.
Indeed, indeed. And then I joined a program called Urban Underground when I was 14 and started learning about youth voice and how the role that young people can play in the betterment of our society, and holding elected officials and other folks accountable. And then I started getting engaged in politics when I turned 15. Helped my mentor and predecessor David Bowen get elected to the county board, and helped on a bunch of local and state and national races. Since then, doing fighting for candidates that were interested in really doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now, which is advocating for criminal legal reforms, fighting for our schools and fighting for families. And we were able to win a lot of those races. We lost a few, but the work continues, and I'm excited to see what we can do in this upcoming session.
So, in last session was your first go around,
Hmm.
and you're relatively young. I mean, you're not the youngest, but when you got in, you were 25,
Yeah.
was it? So you were relatively young. I know you went to Howard, you went to school, and then you came back and you did some things. What was your first term like? And I guess I want to ask you two ways. What is your first term like? And now that you know hindsight, what will change going into your second term?
Yeah. My first term was like drinking from a water hose, and you'll hear every elected official who's coming in, they'll tell you that, right? There's no real on the job training. You kind of come in, and you hit the ground running with a billion emails, phone calls, and conversations with stakeholders about the issues that they care about. And the first big thing you have to deal with is the budget. And that happens for the first 6 months of your term. And I remember having my meeting with the governor and talking about, wanting to ensure that we're doing right by folks who are incarcerated, wanting to ensure that we're doing right by black and brown communities, trying to get more investments in small black owned businesses and so on. And we got a few of those things in the budget, and then Republicans stripped that entire budget to pieces, and started from scratch. Um,
And we'll talk about that in a second because that is super important when we put these people in and how that system works. And I really want to get into that. But continue with like what committees were you on
yeah.
this last session? And
So I was on workforce development, criminal justice and public safety, corrections, children and families. Those were the 4 committees that I was on. I wanted to focus on the continuum of the legal system. Right. We know that people look at incarceration as early as third grade. and follow folks all the way into adulthood. So I wanted to be on the front end of that system and do work on the front end, and then do work on the back end, and to ensure that folks can come out of being incarcerated and live thriving lives. Yeah.
This is State Representative Darrin Madison, 414-444-5250 or 414-444-5253 if you have any questions for him. So you've gone through one, and I want to go back to the budgeting. So you went your first time, like very first time, you go in and you're already starting on budget. No real classes, no real things that you're supposed to work for. You just, and I know you talked to former state representative David Bowen quite a bit to guide you, and you had, I think at the time you were, being mentored by former state representative Jonathan Brostoff as well, and just a bunch of people who could kind of help you navigate. But what is that like being you having making decisions for your district and the state of Wisconsin, because it's your district first, but you still have to look at what the best is for the whole of the state of Wisconsin and still trying to get what you need to get for your own district.
Yeah.
How is that? Because that is so. I guess that's fascinating considering you're 25 and you're new to the game. What was that like?
Yeah, I think it's our budget is complex. It's literally a document that's over thousands of pages. And you have all the needs that your constituents are talking about, and you try and fight for those needs. But then like you said, you have to think about the entire landscape, right? You have to think about rural Wisconsin and everything that's happening in our agricultural sector, and how that affects folks. You have to think about the development of housing and where resources go, and it can't be exclusively to your district or your region. So you you do what you can, and you think about how those decisions that you make as it relates to budget affects your community. For example, if we're not investing dollars into the ag sector, the cost of your food is going up, right? And we
Right.
know that folks right now are struggling with the cost of groceries.
I think my husband told me he bought a 18 pack of eggs and it was like $6. When that used to be like $2, $3, it was like literally $6, $6 or $7 for the 18 pack of eggs.
Yeah, no, we had interesting enough, during COVID, we found out that there were two businesses that basically have monopolized a chicken feed, and both of those companies were using the same recipe for chicken feed that led to less eggs being produced.
Okay.
So that ended up leading to a cost nationally, of the raised cost of the price of eggs. And that seems like a little thing, but that's where the federal government comes in. They set standards, and the state sets standards as it relates to what you can feed animals and so on, and that affects everything in our community.
But this is the point that I think that is good to know, that when you said ag, people most of the time people are like, we don't got no farms here. What does that have to do with us? But it does trickle down. This is one of those times it actually is a trickle down effect where if you're not supporting the farmers that are here and not supporting what they need, um, their production goes down, their prices go up,
Mm-hmm.
and then it eventually that's again trickles down to the grocery stores that you are trying to get to, and those prices go up. Um, so you mentioned, so we're talking about the budget, and you mentioned how the governor has a budget. He puts a budget together. It's a beautiful piece of work that he looks at and he smiles at and he says, I have worked on this a while. Here you go. And he sends it to the Assembly and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And the party that's in charge can either take his recommendations and work within it, or they can say, yeah, I don't like it, toss it and start all over.
Correct. And it's been that way for the uh, three past three budgets.
So that's in each budget is 2 years, so that's 6 years at least.
Yep.
At least. Um so even though we have a Wisconsin has a Democratic governor, right now the assembly and the Senate are led by Republicans.
Correct.
And now the margin, I think over the last election, the margin
Got smaller.
got smaller. Yes, definitely got smaller. But overall, it they still control everything.
Correct. So that they control the Senate by one vote, and they control the Assembly by, I believe, and I always
I
struggle
think
with
it
the
was
number.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the previous session, they almost had a supermajority.
Yeah.
So this is it is a balance now, a little bit more of a balance, but so when it comes and this is important because we always want to tell people, why do you need to vote? Why do you need to support? They also control committees as well, correct?
Correct.
And do they decide who's on the committees, or how does that work?
So they decide, Republicans decide what committees are and what committees exist. They created some new committees this session, and then they decide how many people get to be on that committee.
Can they take away committees as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So they can decide that a committee from last year no longer needs to exist. They can decide that the ratio of seats on a committee can be reduced, which is exactly what just happened this session, or is what's going to happen this upcoming session. We have less seats on a lot of committees, despite the fact that we have more seats in the assembly. So it's an interesting power grab that we'll have to navigate this session.
So let's see if I got this right. So say if there was 10 people on the ABC committee.
Yeah.
And last year it was maybe 7 Republicans, 3 Democrats.
Yep.
They can maneuver that to have like 8 people on it, but they could still keep their 7 Republicans and drop one of the Democratic seats.
Correct. And then you'd have a 7-to-1 ratio, right? You'd have 1 Democrat on that committee and 7 Republicans, which means that as it relates to representation from around the state on the values of that issue, in the ABC committee, you will have less of a voice.
This is where these elections really matter, because we can sit there and say, yay, we want this person, but if we don't understand how the government actually works and the structure of how each of these things go, it is a detriment to maybe your personal best interest. And that is where we have to go back and understanding what is in your personal best interest. How do we vote people in for your personal best interest? Everybody is not going to be the same, but how do I get what's best for me as a person, as me for a community, as me for a state? I mean, and that, I guess that's kind of how you look at things when you're looking at what is best for my district, what is best for my state, and then does this policy work within the federal government?
Correct. Right. So when I look at policy, I think about directly, how does this impact the folks that I represent? Then I look, how does this affect the region, right? The county, the city of Milwaukee, city of Glendale, village of Glendale. I mean, city of Glendale, village of Shorewood. And then I look at, how does this work with federal funding and federal resources coming down, right? Which is something we're really going to have to do and think about, especially in this budget. as a lot of federal resources are going away.
Right. I forgot about, yes.
Right. So, for example,
Mhm.
you look at one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with in the city of Milwaukee is the lead laterals, right?
Right.
I know Glendale has a few left. I know the village of Shorewood still has a few left that they're trying to navigate, and we've been able to get some federal resources to deal with that. Um, it's likely that those federal resources that are going to go away. Um, what's what that means is that for the cost of Milwaukee, which has the most lead laterals in the state, which it would cost about I believe about $1.7 billion to replace all the lead laterals
Okay.
in the city of Milwaukee alone. The state can't afford to do that,
Right.
right? Exclusively. So what that means is that Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, what is already struggling, budget, is still going to have to figure out new strategies to navigate this issue, and that means they're going to have to ask the state for more resources.
And the
And the
state
question
can
is
ask the federal government for more resources. So it becomes
a new burden.
um eh, you did one piece of legislation last year. I think you got it passed. Was it in with the, or you were working on it in regards to the so there was a garage collapse in Glendale in my district.
Yep.
I was very sad about that. I'm glad no one was hurt. But one of the things that you found out is that there was no regulation in regards to that. It's only for like permit for the private sector. Whoever's building that, they maintain it, but there's no regulation in regards to the state or the federal.
Yeah. So what happens is there are standards set for building a parking structure. But once it's built, there's no need to. There aren't standards that require parking structures to be inspected every 5-10 years. Which, like traditionally, as you think about, similar building structures that are exposed to the elements, right? So
Yep.
rain, snow, and so on, like bridges, dams, and so on. They are inspected every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
What that means is that now when you go into a parking structure, that was built 30, 40 years ago, right? There's a chance that that parking structure might have, you know, some issues that make it not structurally sound.
Right.
We had an incident in Glendale, right, that we had to deal with, and thank God that no one lost their lives. But we know that there was an incident in Milwaukee next to the art museum where
Right.
someone died, years prior, because there was no regulatory standards requiring, you know, uh, any parking structure owner to, whether it's public or private, to inspect it, to make sure it's structurally sound, to make sure it's safe for all the thousands and thousands of pounds of vehicles and people that occupy them.
So what ended up happening with your bill?
Yeah. And so what ended up happening this past session is it did not get a hearing. I found quite a few Republicans to sign on to the bill, to support it, but there were struggles in that bill getting a hearing. I think there is a strong path for it to get passed this session, and I think a part of that is because it was introduced at a time that was not the most conducive for it to be passed. So I'm going to introduce it much earlier, and it's likely that it will pass this session.
But this is so. I guess my point is, and we're going to take a break in 1 second. My point is, it's not just about the economics. It's
Yep.
not just about jobs. It's actually about safety. You have to look at bigger things. I know Senator Taylor, when she was in there, now Judge Taylor really pushed ag, and I was like, what does ag have to do with anything? And you've actually picked up that mantle a little bit in the sense of trying to show your district, because we're part of that district, this is important.
Yeah. And we've been able to, outside of policy, we've been able to do some really cool stuff. Like we've gotten these hydroponic systems called Flex Farms in Nicolay, in Glen River Hills, in all the schools in Shorewood, and we're working on getting them in Milwaukee public schools as well, so that they can partner with our food service staff to get young people healthy school meals. Um, but it would be, we need to also work on the policy that ensures that we are bridging the gap between communities. And that's a huge bridge of the gap between especially urban and rural communities, which we constantly have to deal with, is the food on our tables, right? At
Oh
the
yes. Like in Glendale, I live off of Port and Silver Spring. I have a Trader Joe's. I have a Syndic's. I have two, one Pick and Save and one Metro Mark, and then another Metro Mark. All of this is probably within a 2 mile radius, if less, because some of these other grocery stores are a half a mile. But then all of a sudden, you go just 2 miles west and you can't find a grocery store. You have to go, another 2 miles one way or the other. So this all is added into the health, the well-being of our community, making sure that we have healthy foods to eat. It helps with our health care. If we have help, it all is combat, or it's a trickle down.
intersectional.
This is all trickle down. Everything makes sense. So when people like to talk about trickle down, I want to let um it does make a difference. So we're going to take a break. Thank you, State Representative Darrin Madison. You are the 10th District Representative. You better do some work because I'm gonna watch because I'm in your district and I'm watching you.
I got you.
Please come back on and tell us when you have a new bill that you're putting in or something that you think we need to know.
Got you.
Thank you. We'll be right back. This is Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices, WNOV 860. We'll be right back. Devo, you didn't miss me? I didn't.
Yeah, you jump ship. You
I was
stop coming in.
working.
They're gonna handle it. I'm so busy right now.
No. And I missed y'all, so I'm coming
Well,
back.
I will say this, and I'm not just saying it. I've watched you and your ethic, your work ethic, and all of the things that I know that you're involved in and that you do. And sometimes we all just need to just step away sometimes for ourselves to just
Oh yeah.
mental break, whatever it is. So hats off. I mean, I did miss you, true enough. I knew when you weren't in the building, but certainly I understand.
Well, I thank you. I was messing with Mr. Debo because he
messed
you
with
got a
him.
cold.
I do. So
And
to be
see, this
respectful
is
of all of y'all, I
respect. This
just
is
put a
respect. He
mask
got
on.
his mask on.
Mhm.
He trying to make sure that I don't get sick because I gotta go shake a tail feather tomorrow. No, you know I'm I might do some Uber Eats. I might
Yeah.
go and
No tail
deliver
feathers.
Uber Eats because that's amateur night.
Yeah.
Um, thank you guys for coming back. We have a special person to me. This woman she just shakes her head and smiles. We have inside jokes like
Mhm.
the word tahiki, it makes her smile.
Yes.
Just stuff like that. But
I
this
love
woman
Tamika.
I met her when she was working in the schools, the MPS schools, and she was heavily involved in the MTEA,
Well, the MEAA. But
MEA,
yeah.
and then she went and we're going to talk a little bit more, but she soared into the school board and the county. Now she's a state. I would like to welcome Dr. State Representative elect Saquana Taylor.
Thank you, Tamika. Love her.
She always
She the only person that can say all that.
she always says, "Oh, there we go." She always says, "You always doing too much. You doing too much." But you did a lot.
Yeah.
You've done a lot. So let's talk. I want to bring it up to most people do know you, but there's a few people like in your district who may not know you yet, even because you represented some of them, but not all
Not
of
all
them.
of them. Yep.
And so we just kind of want to start from the beginning. Like,
Okay.
so you were working as a teacher in MPS?
Nope. I was I started as a special ed para, and then I finished as a parent and family engagement. I did sub, like, not because that was what I was supposed to do, but when you work for MPS,
You can
do
be
all
everywhere.
right. I did bus discipline. You can do 1,000 different jobs. That is that as included as well. Right. Yeah, but I was the leader over the ESP unit, which that is almost everybody that is not a teacher that works in a district. We all are educators, but a lot of times people just say teachers, but you have the paras, right? You have secretaries, you have those that do
Not just teacher, but support
support
staff,
staff, all
everything.
type, yeah, right. So I often tell people the janitor is just as important as the CEO. So everybody else in the support staff is just as important, because the teachers are important. Let me not get that wrong, as the teachers, because it takes the whole team for that school to run.
And then then you decided you needed to help because you were part of the MPS family.
Yeah.
And you ran for school board.
I ran for county first.
Oh, you ran for county first. So
Yeah.
did you win your county seat?
I did. I did.
Have you lost an election yet?
No.
Okay, so let's keep going.
Yeah.
So you ran for county.
Yes.
Why did you decide to run for county?
So when county came about, there was doing that transition time where it was going from full-time pay, because I want people to understand, to part-time pay, not part-time job, right? Because a lot of people didn't understand it. And because of a lot of the changes that were happening, people were moving around, and gratefully so, right? If you had been working somewhere, you was getting benefits, getting money. Now you were told that it wasn't going to be this amount of money. There was a lot of changes happening. It was right after Act 14 had happened. And my mom and them lived in the district. And as I continued to keep asking, like, who's running for the seat? People were like, I don't know who's running. Won't you run? And I'm like, no. But I thought about, like, service of the community. And I've always been about service, not about titles. And I wanted to make sure whoever got into that seat will serve that community. And the fact that a lot of people still don't understand what county is as a part of government. I usually say county is the social services of government, right? City is the day-to-day, and state is the mandates.
I actually look at county as the quality of life.
Yeah.
It's your parks. It's your parks. It's your
family care. Your seniors that are called,
yes. It's all of those quality of life attributes that make your government work.
Yes.
Even with the state gives the money to the county to deal with
Well, they give us some, but yes,
you know what
they
I
the
mean.
mandators.
But they're the mandators, and it's an arm of the state.
Yeah, the county is absolutely a direct arm of the state. And so just with that, just wanted to make sure someone ran and really cared about it, wanted to make sure people understood what was going on with county. I think within the big transition of county too, people didn't even know that it had all of those cuts that happened to that position and what was going on with county. Some people did, don't get me wrong, but I don't think people understand the extent of county government and how it is a $1 billion budget that affects Milwaukee County, not just the city, because some of the other areas are part of Milwaukee County. So decided to run, not because I ever wanted to run in life. It was not a dream of mine. I'm just going to be truly honest.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, but it absolutely taught me some things. It helped me grow. And I was able to service my community. So there kind of started the journey of running for office.
And I think you were the vice chair of the party, of the county when you left, when you finished your last term.
Yeah, well, I'm still at the county. This term, I didn't run for any leadership roles because I knew I was running for state. And I feel like it would be unfair. Like, if you're going to run for something, be all in or don't be in at all. That's just my opinion. So I decided not to run for leadership on the county because I knew I was running for a state position.
So now are you running again for your?
No, I will not. As I said before, I will transition out of the county seat and just be at the state. But I feel I owe my constituents to ensure that someone is in that seat as I transition and not an empty seat because they deserve to be served by somebody as well too.
So you're waiting. You're gonna finish out your county term through.
I won't finish out the whole term. We're just.
You're trying to work that out to make sure that
out.
there is not a big gap between somebody not being able to vote for your district issues.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, you responsible. You
Yes,
responsible.
I try to be.
So then you went from county and then you ran for school board.
Yes.
And how did that come about? Because again, you're not really one of those people who.
No. So I worked in the school system for definitely over 15 years. And that's where my advocacy, I won't say began, but that's where it enhanced because I had always been advocating for young people and people that were wrong, right? With just my community work. And so when a seat on a school board became available, I just thought about I had been in the school district for so long. I had been advocating on these things. And most of the time we had to go to the board when we were advocating. And when a seat became available, believe me, I talked to my family, my babies, right? Because it was something else that would affect my family life. I pray. I'm a person of faith. And just determine, like, once again, who would I like to see represented? And at that time, I didn't know of nobody else running for the seat. I'm the type of person, if I feel somebody is running, they can do a good job. We don't need to be in competition. That's just me, right? If you find somebody that's of quality running. Right. And so when I put my name out there was somebody else running, but at that time I was in.
And this is usually, and I want to preface what you said, but most of the time it's an open seat that you will run for.
Yes.
It's fair game on open seats.
Yes.
I believe
seat I ran for has been fair game.
It's fair game on open seats.
Yeah.
And actually, I kind of feel it's fair game with
any
seat.
It's the people's seat.
Right. Like, it's the people's seat.
It's the people's seat.
If somebody is working hard and doing their job and hitting a community, you do not need to run against them. It's the people who are not, doing what they can do, not making sure that they're talking to their constituents. You never hear from them until election
time.
That's where I see, there's an issue. If they're
the community does too.
Right. So I don't ever say you shouldn't run against an incumbent. I will never say that because you never know what it is. I ran against an incumbent when I ran for when I ran for alderman.
Yeah.
But
alderwoman,
yes. But the reason I did is because nobody else ran against him, and he wasn't gonna go away.
Right.
He was a really good leader for 30 years, but he had been there for like 25, 30 years. And he was missing a lot of meetings. He was missing, but no one would run against him. And then, I ran. So I was like, okay, so it's not always, I can't be a hypocrite and say you shouldn't run against the incumbent because I did.
No. Yeah. And for the seats, like you said, mine was open. But if I felt like there were people running for that seat, right, that was the best fit just for me, then I wouldn't, because there's been times I've been asked to run for other seats and you know me. I'll say no.
I
No.
think when I ran for the state assembly, and when we were both in District 16,
Yeah.
you're in 16. No,
No,
you're in 11 now.
I've always been in 11.
We were running
Yes.
in 11, and you were thinking about running, and I said I was going to run, and you were like, okay, cool, I'm
Right.
done. And I was like, well, you can run.
And I
I
was-
mean,
no.
we had that conversation. Let's all
Yeah.
run together. You know, and Dora Drake ended up winning that seat.
Right.
Maybe that was supposed to be your wait, let Dora do
Yes.
her thing, and then you can be on there.
Absolutely. And I believe in having those conversations. And it's not about, oh, don't run against so and so. I just think communication is the key. It's so integral in a lot of things that we do. And it's not saying you can't run against anybody, but we had that conversation. And I was like, oh, no, you run. Right. And let's
Right.
support each other in the work that we do, because at the end of the day, if it's about service in our community, let's do that.
So then how long were you on the school board?
I only did one term on the school board, baby. For the school board, you have to be all in. And I was on the school and the county board at the same time. I absolutely still love the district and advocate for them. But if you're on that school board, that is a board like no other. That is 100% of the time. I know they say it's halftime. It is not. You need to be in your schools. You definitely need to be connecting with those educators as well as your constituents. So I did one
administrator,
term. In the
administration too.
Like everybody you won't ever probably always be on one page, but you have to give it 100% because our babies deserve that. And if you can't, if you know you can't give it that,
that's
for
why
me,
that was for you.
That was for me.
No, I was on the school board, and I'm not trying to talk about myself, but I was on the school board and the Common Council. I in 16 I got on the school board, and then 17 I was on Common Council, and I had those seats until I resigned in 2023 for the school board. A little bit different. I don't have a huge,
79,000 people in school
yes,
board district.
exactly. I have
1,000
in our school district, and 13,000 in the city of Glendale. But that's only 2,000 of my constituents.
Elected, right? Like I got elected and COVID hit. Right. They talked about the worst, but it was. Everybody was not going to be happy. But yeah, that was definitely a trying and challenging time, and still love the babies, right? Because they still deserve the best. But yeah.
And then, and I know I know you're trying to help some of the people who are running, or some people who are on the board now, with just the experience that you had for the 4 years, was it, that you were
for the school board?
Yeah.
Yep. School was for County of BTN.
Yeah. So the 4 years that you were on the school board, you're trying to help navigate whatever you can to give them information. But then you decided, so the seat came up for District 11.
Yes.
At the time, State Representative Dora Drake ran for Senate when Senator Taylor, now Judge Taylor, moved to the judicial side of things.
Yeah.
And then and she couldn't run for that seat and run for Senate at the same time, so that seat became open, and you went after it.
I did.
Did you have an opponent? You had a primary, but you didn't have a general opponent.
Yeah, I had a primary, but not a general. And so while local government is nonpartisan, even though we all know where people stand, state government is absolutely partisan. So when you run with a party, whatever that party may be, and that's how it's kind of determined. So if you have someone in the same party, they call it a primary. If I didn't have anybody on the other side, for those that may not know, that's the general. So when you win in a primary, you win if you don't have an opposition for the general.
And
so primary takes
the general, and just to clarify, the general can be another Republican.
Yeah.
It can be the Green Party, independent. Because I know in Lakeisha Meyer's old district, in District 12, there was a Democrat, and then there was an independent as well. So your general could be, it's not just Democrat, Republican. It can be any other party, or an independent person.
Yes.
So you excited?
Yeah, I am. And I know my excitement probably seems a little different for people. But my excitement is service, but it's also learning. And even though I've been in government
Different,
locally, it's
yeah,
different. It's at
different.
the
Yeah.
state. And so a lot of people like, what are you going to do? And don't get me wrong, I have policies and procedures. What I ran on is reentry, and that's what I've been doing at the county, health and human needs with the emphasis, right? Our youth and empowerment part. Like I've always been about the youth with economic development. But my thing is, a lot of times we have laws that are on the books and policies that are not enacted because whoever passed them may no longer be there, or because no one's doing the checks and balances. So for those ones,
Or
yeah,
or
yeah.
there is a policy that has no money attached to it.
Absolutely. And I've seen that at the county. And so I want to first go in, and I've already started doing this with some people, researching some policies first to see, hey, has anyone passed something that was similar to this? Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to change it? Was there dollars attached to it? Was there a check and balance system attached to it? Because a lot of times we are recreating a wheel in a different span. Right?
Exactly. And sometimes we have laws, we have we have all this stuff already in place, but we've never put dollars to it. We can't address anything because of dollars. But that is where the budget time is so
Very
important
important.
right now. And I kind of hate, and we had Representative Madison
That
on.
we walk into a budget as a new.
Yeah, that you walk
We
into a
walking into
budget
a
with,
budget.
and you, what do you get? A couple of days where they have you guys all come in and you do like an orientation
Well, I
to
heard
a.
this time it was better than they had in the past. So I don't know. But we used
No,
to
I'm
for a
just
week.
saying it's still just an
Yeah.
orientation that you can, get some information, but it's definitely not in depth. Like you don't know, how are you supposed to look at a budget? How are you
That
supposed to
amendment.
look at amendments? How do you do any of that? Well, luckily, I think you have some seasoned people
Yes, a
around
mentor.
you, a lot of state rep people that
Yeah.
have been around, former senators,
Yes.
former chief of staffs who are
And the
willing to
employees. That's what they
call,
there for.
and the employees,
Make them work.
to like help navigate all
Yes,
that.
absolutely. Because budget. We walk right into a budget. So even now, before we got on, it was like the preparation of it, right? Like, what do you want in a budget? And you want probably 1,000 things, and not saying you don't understand it, but I remember like being in my orientation, and some of the people were like fresh new, right? They was like, at least you know some of it. And so it would definitely be a journey, but I do believe you should ask for help, and then you should also research yourself. There's nothing like knowing what's going on and then asking versus not knowing and thinking if you ask a question, you sound stupid. No question is stupid, especially when you're talking about money and people's lives are at stake.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Dr. State Representative Elect Saquana Taylor. I'm going to have to get that middle initial too to put it all together.
Lord, she
We'll
said my
be
whole
right
name.
back with Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices, 860 AM, 106.5 FM. All right. We have what's your middle initial?
No, I'm not telling you.
Why you tell me your
You go
middle
look,
initial?
you go
I'm
know
gonna
it
go
anyway.
look. See, she making me look when I could just she could just tell me so I could say Dr. State Representative.
Oh,
Wait,
it's
wait,
my
wait,
whole
wait,
name.
wait.
I
So
know you know it.
wait. Let
Right.
me see. You are. Let's see. So how would you put Dr. State Rep Elect County Supervisor Sequana P. Taylor?
She gonna think of something.
I put a P in there. Does it sound better? It sound good. It sound
He
good.
said okay.
I was thinking L.
Oh, you was thinking
Thinking
of
of L.
Sequana L. No. Let's see, Sequana M. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
So just from fun stuff,
Yeah.
you get to hire your staff. So
Yes.
have you done that? You don't have to tell us who it
I
is, but you did.
did.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's one check mark.
Yes.
Did you put in your requests for your committees?
I did.
What they looking like? Which
we don't. So to be truly honest.
So wait, let me explain this to people. They can request
Yes.
what they would like to do, but
Right.
it is up to leadership to put them, and that is both the Democratic and Republican leadership,
Yeah.
to put them into the
committee.
slots in the committees. But you can ask.
Yeah. You can ask, but so from what I know, we had like the biggest new amount of new people that has been in office maybe the last 15 years
Right.
coming through. So now they got to figure out where to put everybody that's so new, but also the leadership that's, I hate to say it like that, in the majority, they get first dibs.
Right.
And so the Republicans are in the majority, so they get to dish out the committees to their people. They also get to decide if there are new committees.
Right. So we talked about that in the last
with
segment.
Darrin, you did okay.
With Darrin, where we talked about how they can add committees,
take away,
get rid of committees, add more people to it, add less people to it. We were given the example, like on a committee that was in last session, could have 10 people on it. They could go, and it could have been, 6 Republicans, 4 Democrats.
Right.
But they could actually go back and say, we're going to drop it down to 8, and we can have 7 Republicans and 1 Democrat down there. Like the ratios can change, and there's
all nothing that different from what they put out to us. And then we get it. And then with all of us bringing in 23 new ones, they have to then divvy up those with us. And then the people that have been there, which you would call them the seniors, right? Like you want them to kind of get some of the stuff they've been on before. So what I've been looking at is definitely something within criminal justice, right? Okay. Because I do a lot of the reentry stuff, economic development. And there was a couple on there that I thought were new, right? That had to do with like commerce, definitely the ones that deal with like domestic violence, and that was more of not the committees, but these other groups that you can be a part of, which they changed it to maybe like a subcommittee, because that's my background of stuff that I do and advocate for as well too. You can give up to maybe 7 or 8. And so I know I gave some more too, but I tried to go through there and do some stuff that I know with bills and policies I wanted to pass. And then other ones is that sometimes I feel like you never know until you get into that field of what's going on. Like when we talk about Andre Lee Ellis and Senator Taylor, baby, before them, a lot of us didn't know that much about agriculture. Now we understand agriculture is so important to our community and what happens. And so we don't have the committees yet unless they came out today, maybe.
Well, you get, I'm coming down. I'll be there on, swearing in is on the 6th.
It's on the 6th.
2, each rep or senator has their own private swearing in, and then
for sure.
The new ones, but then the big, I know the assembly one is at 2.
It's at 2.
When is the Senate one? Do you know what time the Senate one is? It's usually after.
I want to say it's after, so I want to say 4, but I ain't 100%.
I've been to both of them, and they're kind of weird, and it's like they're go
totally
right
different.
into business, though. They go right into business on the Senate side. They're like boom, 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 and then right into business. Too. So I'm looking forward to going. This will be my 5th time going, I believe. I think 4th or 5th time, but I believe that is a time to, especially with the work that Wisconsin Voices does, which is protect democracy, build community, and teach advocacy. We're keeping with the traditions that the three pillars, but to protect democracy, we need to know who at the table. To build community, we need to know who at the table. And to teach advocacy, we need to know who's at the table. So in the next year or so, and we're going to be asking you to come back, telling us what new pieces of legislation that you have brought on, what's different, because we're going to talk about this next week, Monday or Tuesday, where they're going to start pushing some of these referendums again. And one of the referendums that I have come across is actually having a referendum on voter ID being part of the Constitution. Like, you have to have an ID. I worked this past election season and we assisted people to register to vote, and the biggest obstacle is that ID. And it's not about the voting there, but even registering to vote with an ID, all that kind of stuff. I don't understand why we can't just put in, hey, when you turn 18, we know who's 18. Yeah. We know if they are citizens. We know all that. You automatically, it should be an opt out, not an opt in. If you don't want to vote, then you opt out.
Right. But if you want to vote, you're already there.
You're already ready to do the job.
That do that.
But there is but that is a big thing, and I heard there's like 6 other referendums that they may be trying to do within the next 2 years. A couple of them may be on this ballot, but here's the key: there's only 2 statewide elections, and like in Milwaukee, except for the school board, if there is some people running, because right now I haven't heard if anybody is running, if there's more than 1 or 2 people running.
I think in one of the seats it's either 5. I think it's like about 5 people. I think
so. One seat though.
One seat, if I'm remembering right.
Is it a at-large seat you recall? Or
no, I think it's more of a
district
seat.
Seat.
It's a district seat.
So, but that
East
is
side,
only
side.
engaging that one district. If nobody else is running in some of these other seats, how do we engage everybody else to come in? And this is when they do the okey doke on these referendums, because it's gonna supposedly, it's gonna be a low voter turnout, not many people, and pushing those people to get in.
Yeah, and people have to know, and I know a lot of times people go back and forth with voting. And
all right, we are out of time. It is exactly 12.
Okay,
thank you for being with Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices, 860 AM, 106.5 FM. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I look forward to coming back, y'all. Stay tuned.
And I'll be there watching you do your thing.
Okay.
I'm going to watch you do your thing.
I absolutely understand and believe you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Saquana Taylor, for being part of Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices. We're out of here. This is, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow. All right.
He's saying I ain't gonna be here tomorrow.
Oh.
Black America, Ben Crump.